Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934. It is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Fall in love with autumn with PJ's new seasonal lattes. Our pumpkin latte brings you all the flavors of a pumpkin pie with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg, like your favorite holiday dessert in a cup. And our s'mores latte with flavors of toasted marshmallows, warm milk chocolate, and graham cracker cinnamon is sure to bring back campfire memories. The PJ's Fall Seasonal Lattes, available at your local PJ's only for a limited time.
Well, here's the bottom line. Funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. Hey, I'm your host, Scott Alexander, and we have a very fun show for you today. I cannot wait to get started. But first, we have to talk about the great weekend, the Jazz Fest. Well, it just ended a great 2-week run. It was incredible. The weather was beautiful. Well, the food was the food. I tried just about everything over the last 2 weeks over there. And the music, and of course, well, you can't have Jazz Fest without the Mardi Gras Indians. And like I say this, those are so much fun to watch. Every time they come around, they do a little dance. Everybody's going out to the corridor and watching them. But hey, the acts were just incredible once again. Hats off to the Jazz Fest. It's not all jazz, as you know, but you have the big hits like Lionel Richie. He played on Thursday. But Friday before Lionel, there you see Darcy Malone. They were our guest last week. That's Billy Shell, Darcy Malone. They killed it on Friday. But like I said, Thursday you had Lionel Richie, and he had a great show over there. But Friday, how about this? You had Beck, LL Cool J, and Lyle Lovett. You had a little flavor for everybody who wanted it. Saturday, the big act was Aerosmith. Sunday, Jack White from the White Stripes, of course, and Smokey Robinson, one of Motown's all-time greatest. And plus, they ended it with the king, the new king, I should say, of the Jazz Fest. It used to be the Neville Brothers. It's Trombone Shorty, as you see there, and he absolutely kills it every year now. He always closes out the fest. Hey, by the way, the NBA playoffs for the New Orleans Pelicans, it was definitely a tale of two polar opposite teams this week. Hey, when the Pels played the Warriors on Friday, you know, they played Friday and Sunday. Well, the Friday game they won. They won big. It was 119-100. The score was even a lot closer than the game was. The Pelicans looked like NBA championship contenders. They blew them out. They shot 50% from the field. They were on fire from deep, hitting 14 threes, and they had an incredible whopping 36 assists. That's a ton. If you have 30, you have a great game. You're passing the ball a lot. But 21 of those were Rajon Rondo, those assists, and that is an incredible number because, listen, only two guys in NBA history have even had more in a playoff game. Magic Johnson and John Stockton, both considered the two greatest point guards who've ever played. By the way, AD was on fire again, 33 points, 18 rebounds, and 4 steals. And Drew Holiday continues to play great basketball. He played incredible defense, plus he pitched in for 21 points and had a great game. Mirotic, who continues to be a great trade over the trade deadline when the Pelicans picked him up when Boogie got hurt. He was great, 16 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 threes. And Ian Clark, the former Golden State Warrior, he had 18 points off the bench. That was huge. But then there was Sunday. Sunday was a little bit different. The Warriors, well, they became the Warriors again. This team, well, who's been in the NBA championship for 3 straight years, and they've won 2 of them, well, they throttled the Pelicans from the start. The Pels did play a little good basketball. Back in the second quarter, they actually outscored the Warriors 41-28. And that cut a one-time 27-10 lead all the way down to 55-51 with just a minute to go in the half. But after that, it was all over. That's all they had left in the gas tank. And Kevin Durant went absolutely nuts in this game. 38 points, and the Warriors won going away. Game 5 is tonight at 9:30. Will the season end tonight? Regardless if it does, it's been a fantastic year. Certainly the best they've had around here in 10 years. It's been a nice run. We'll see if they can keep it going one more night to see if they play Thursday. By the way, in the other Western Conference semifinal, the Rockets, well, they just swamped the Utah Jazz twice this week. And remember, the Rockets got beat bad by the Jazz in Houston. Well, they took it out on Utah in Salt Lake City. It was ugly. And probable NBA MVP James Harden, former New Orleans Hornet Chris Paul, and defensive whiz Clint Capella, well, they give the Rockets a legitimate big three in Houston. This team will be dealt with, and it should be a heck of a Western Conference final. I got to tell you that. But in the East, as the teams that came into their series, the two teams that were underdogs, well, until last night, they had yet to lose a single game. The underdogs were just killing it. First, I'll start with the Cavs. They swept the hapless Toronto Raptors, and they finished that off last night. The tone was set in this series in Game 1. Remember when the Raptors were up by 17 points? And then the Cavs came back to win that game in Toronto. But then on Saturday night, you see that shot right there? That's one of the greatest shots I've ever seen to end a game. That's when LeBron, he hit that incredible one-handed runner off 1 foot at the buzzer, the game-winning shot. It was just another amazing play by one of the greatest players to ever play the game of basketball. Hey, Boston, they were a whopping 6-1 favorite in this series. Remember, they lost their top 2 players. Everybody thought that Philly, who was playing so great, was going to blow them out. Well, they went down 3-0, Philly did, and now Philly won last night. But the 3-1, but that game winner, that you see Al Horford coming up right here. Al Horford hit a game winner on Saturday in overtime, and that was an incredible game. Those 2 Saturday games are amazing. So they're going to try to finish this thing out. Boston lost last night. They're going to try to finish it out to Wednesday night. So that should be interesting to see. Hey, the 144th running of the Kentucky Derby. Remember we had Bernie Halpern last week? Well, that was this past weekend, of course, and it was the wettest track at Churchill Downs. Well, it's been the wettest since 144 years. It's the wettest it's ever been. And an absolute deluge in Louisville Saturday, but that didn't stop the favorite, Justify, from going wire to wire. He won while running a fantastic race, and I got to say, it was legit. He has a legitimate shot at being only the second horse in 40 years to win the Triple Crown. Hall of Fame jockey Mike Smith, well, he did it again. He was born a day before me, by the way. A day before. He looks like he's a lot younger. He's about 100 pounds lighter. But he won his 5th Triple Crown race. He's got 2 Belmonts to his credit. He's got the Preakness, and this is his 2nd Kentucky Derby win. The other, well, that came in 2005. He was aboard a 50-1 underdog. That was Giacomo back then. Hey, Hall of Fame trainer Bob Baffert, well, he did it again. He won his 5th Kentucky Derby, and that includes American Farrell. Remember that 3 years ago in 2015? And every one of his 4 previous Derby winners, by the way, have won the Preakness. The other 3 obviously did not win the Belmont because American Farrell was the first horse in 36 years to do that, and hopefully this horse will do it as well. Hey, capturing the Belmont, and speaking of the Derby, we have 2 local New Orleanians. I can't wait for this segment. Pat and Frank McGoey. Patrick they won $300,000 together this weekend. They finished 1st and 3rd in the prestigious Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge. That should be a fun segment, and we'll see how they did it. Hey, by the way, joining us tonight, it's going to be definitely a fun segment. But in other news, hey, the streaky New Orleans Baby Cakes, they've won 5 games in a row. How about that? And they just completed their first 4-game sweep in Omaha since 1997, over 20 years ago. And pitcher Ben Meyer was named the Pacific Coast League Pitcher of the Week. So congratulations to him. The New Orleans Jesters, our soccer team. Remember, every year we bring on their head coach. Well, they begin their season tomorrow, a year after having such great success in the playoffs. And head coach Kenny Farrell, who I just mentioned, is going to join me to talk about his team, also talk about the upcoming World Cup, and have a little MLS as well. And I can't leave out the rugby guys. In rugby news, hey, the NOLA Gold, they won their first ever game last week, 35-26, and that was against the Houston SaberCats. The Gold, that's obviously a new league, new team. They started with the 2 games on the road. They now stand 1-1 with their first home game. Is going to be this coming up Saturday at noon at Archbishop Shaw's new stadium. And they've decided to call that thing the Crucible. I have no idea why, but that's going to be the nickname for the stadium, kind of like the Blender we have over here for the Pelicans. So get on out there and try to support them. That's going to be noon on Saturday across the river. Hey, by the way, John Sullivan, J.P. Eloff are the team's leading scorers. and congratulations to them. And last but certainly not least, your New Orleans Saints, they're going to hold their rookie camp this weekend on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the Saints are going to get their first up-close look at first-round defensive lineman Marcus Davenport, whom the team traded 2 first-round picks this year and next to move up to get him. I still think that this is going to be a great deal because he was the last truly dominant edge rusher in this draft. The Saints absolutely had to have that position filled, and they moved up and got what they needed. How about this? Taquan Smith was their 3rd-round pick. They didn't have a 2nd round. Remember that because of Alvin Kamara trade last year. He's from UCF. He is going to be a good one. 4th-round pick was offensive lineman Rick Leonard from Florida State. 5th round, they nabbed a safety from Wisconsin and Natrell Jamerson. And they got a pair of 6th-rounders, Cameron Moore from Boston College and diminutive kick returner Boston Scott from Louisiana Tech. And my favorite draft pick, because we had him on the show 2 weeks ago, local favorite Will Clapp, who played at LSU. He played center and guard there and also played locally at Brother Martin. And speaking of Marcus Davenport, I got to tell you, the Saints' 1st-round pick, kind of have a funny story. I was supposed to have his college coach on this show. I thought I did. It was head coach Frank Wilson. Or at least I thought I had the former LSU running back coach and recruiting coordinator and St. Aug coach, but the guy I've been communicating with since the draft 10 days ago, well, it turned out to be another coach named Frank, and I didn't find that out till last night. And that was kind of funny how I figured it out. But Frank will come on a different show, but just not this one. Also, next week, I have to advertise this because it's one of the greatest guests we'll have. And we've had many great Hall of Famers here. But Saints Hall of Fame quarterback Archie Manning, the most beloved Saint in franchise history, will be right here on Primetime Sports. Well, maybe most beloved since until Drew Brees won that Super Bowl a decade ago. Hey, by the way, also another local guy's doing some great things. Winfield native and LSU star, former All-American defensive lineman Booger McFarland. Well, he's also a 2-time Super Bowl champion with the Bucs and Colts. Well, he's joining Monday Night Football. He's going to join Jason Witten and Joe Tessitore. He's actually going to be what they called a field analyst. That's a new position, not a sideline reporter, but a field analyst. That's going to be funny. Hey, we've got a great show for you tonight. Stay tuned because Glenn Guilbeau is going to talk next about the Pelicans as well as some LSU baseball. We haven't talked about that much lately. Not much to talk about. They showed a little life this weekend against Arkansas, but we're also hopefully maybe even getting a little LSU spring football talk as well with Glenn. All that's next right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back to Primetime Sports, and that was one of my favorite performers, Big Sam from Big Sam's Funky Nation. They played this weekend, and they killed it on the Acura stage. It was so much fun. And by the way, there were so many acts that have been right here on Primetime Sports that I saw this weekend, at least 7 or 8 of them. And we're going to continue to bring on those great musicians. And, oh, by the way, don't forget, the one and only Archie Manning will be right here on the show next week, and we're going to continue to have guests like that as well. But right now, we're going to switch gears. We're talking Pelicans and maybe a little LSU because I have the guy that's been with USA Today Network for 13 years, a New Orleans native, actually. He went to Rummel High School, then he went to the Missouri School of Journalism, and now he's back in Louisiana. Been back for a while. He was with the Baton Rouge Advocate for several years after landing in Alabama. And now, like I said, he's with USA Today. His name, you know it well. It's Glenn Guilbeau. What's up, my friend?
How are you?
And a man who, by the way, loves everything about New Orleans. Every time I talk to Glenn at games, he's talking about going to hear some good music, maybe going to a nice restaurant. So as a former New Orleanian living in Baton Rouge, you know what New Orleans is all about.
Yeah, and this is a great time of year. I really enjoyed the fact that the Pelicans were playing at the same time the Jazz Fest was going on, so I could get my, some expenses paid for.
Right, yeah. By the way, let me say this. He had the greatest schedule. Thursday Jazz Fest, Friday night Pels game, Saturday Jazz Fest, Saturday afternoon Pels game. It doesn't
Sunday
get
afternoon
Pels game, except for the loss on Sunday. That weekend is just about perfect.
Oh yeah, and the greatest thing about Jazz Fest is the nighttime acts around the city.
Right.
After Jazz Fest,
Right.
like Tab Benoit saw Friday night at Republic, Saturday night really wee hours Sunday morning saw John Cleary at the Maple Leaf Ball.
We know what that's all about, the wee hours, although I'm a little too old now. I mean, you got more stamina than me, because for me to go to the Jazz Fest the next day, I can't do those late shows. But anyway, I do admire you and your work in particular, and I have seen you at those Pelicans games. I was at both of them, so let's start right there. Tale of two games, obviously. I talked about this in my open. Friday night, they looked like championship contenders. They really did. They were hitting everything. Their defense was spectacular. They were engaged. And then Sunday, it was a complete polar opposite type game. Kind of give me a nutshell of your thoughts about these two games.
Well, I thought Golden State just wasn't all there in the Friday night game. You know, I think maybe they might have been a little overconfident, but they got themselves together. They changed the lineup a little bit for Sunday, and they just. But I don't know how much the lineup had to do with it. It was more, they just came out on fire.
Yeah.
And they took a 14-4 lead, and the Pelicans got it within 4 late in the second quarter. But they were never really in the game again. And the third quarter blew them away.
It was 27-10 off the bat. And and I mentioned this again in my open. The Pels did go on a little bit of a run, 32-24 to cut it, like you say, 55-51 at one point. And then after that, it was all over. I mean, the third quarter started like the first did, and they didn't have any gas left to catch up. And then, you know, it's a little unique to have a playoff game on a Friday night and then come back on Saturday afternoon. Sunday afternoon, excuse me. 2 days later, but not even really 2 days. I mean, it's an early afternoon game. So they obviously were showing the effects the Pelicans were in that game.
Yeah, and, you know, they didn't shoot the three well at all. That's what killed them. It was their worst three-point shooting all season. 15%.
Yeah.
And Golden State is so long, they can extend the defense. And as our boy Coach Brady mentioned after the game on
I saw that
analysis he was doing,
Daniel's show, right?
He mentioned that Rajon Rondo had, I think he had 6 assists Sunday after 21,
right.
and New Orleans franchise playoff record. He was all over the place Friday, and that was a key thing that they also took away from the Pelicans.
Not just a franchise record. How about Magic Johnson and John Stockton,
right.
the only 2 players who ever get more?
Right.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm glad you went there. Talk about what Rajon Rondo has meant for this team, because during the season, you didn't see really a whole lot at times, maybe during the streaks. But early on, people were calling that a washout, and they were like, oh, he didn't even play in some games when he was capable. But his leadership has been second to none for this Pelicans team. Yeah,
they call him playoff Rondo. Throughout his career, he's done well in the playoffs after so in the regular season. But he kind of returned to his regular season form Sunday.
Sure.
And that kind of hurt him. You know, Anthony Davis was really the only guy who played very well in both games. So did Drew Holiday. But they just didn't have enough to really make a game of it on Sunday.
All right, a lot of talk about Boogie Cousins, and I'm bringing this up for one reason, because before the playoffs even happened, and really after, when people were talking about, hey, the Pels are on a 10-game win streak, they're playing better without him, and I said, listen, Mirotic is better suited for this offense that they have now, yes. But when you get to the playoffs, into the second and third rounds, meaning the conference semifinals and finals, if you are lucky enough to get there, you're not going to want to face the Rockets or the Golden State Warriors without Boogie Cousins in your arsenal. And I want your thoughts on that, because we're seeing kind of that right now, because I think, not to say the Pelicans will be winning the series, but they would strike a little more fear into Golden State, I believe, if they had that weapon. By the way, he was putting up historic numbers.
Oh, no question. You know, when Boogie Cousins was averaging 25 points a game, I think 13 rebounds and 6 assists.
Crazy numbers.
He's doing everything. He had all those 40-point games and tied some marks we hadn't seen since Wilt Chamberlain. And when he got hurt, you know, everybody thought it was over. Yeah. You know, and I made a comparison to when Pete Maravich got hurt in the 77-78 season. I was at Rumble High. I was getting ready for the playoffs. Yeah. And he got hurt, and that was it. And I thought that was going to happen to the Pelicans, but credit to them, they were able to make some moves and get back in it. And I've heard this, oh, well, they're better without Boogie. You know, that's where coaching comes in. If Boogie was healthy, you find a place for him.
You just gave me a thought. You said 70, because I think 78, I remember being in 8th grade, and I remember Rummel was the greatest team. I mean, they were unbelievable.
Yes.
They won the state in '78. Were you on that team too?
No. Well,
Okay.
I was in school. I wasn't on the
but
team.
You were a student on that.
Yeah, they won it in '77 and '78.
Yeah, they were phenomenal.
Back-to-back state championships. Coach Jim Robarch, Joey Stiving was on
yeah.
the. He was a senior in '79 as I was. And you know, it's funny talking about Coach Brady. One of his mentors, one of the guys he really admires, was Jim Robarch.
I thought you were going to say he dates Joey Stiving's ex-wife. That was it. But anyway, sorry, John. I had to throw that in. Hey, by the way, about
sorry, Joey too.
Alvin Gentry. They've been divorced. But Alvin Gentry, the job he's done. A lot of people wanted to put his head on the chopping block way back, maybe January 10th when they were 20-20. Well, they've went on such a run now since, and I want your opinion on the job he's done.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody with the Pelicans was in trouble the last couple of years, but to do what they've done after they lost Boogie, I think it's just an incredible job by Coach Gentry, and you know the way they blew by Portland in the first series was just really impressive, and even if they lose tonight, they did win a game. They got into the second round. That's a very good season, a step in the right direction. And if they return this team and bring Boogie back, you know, who knows how far they can go.
I 100% agree with you. I really do because, you know, obviously, you know, people forget when they got swept 3 years ago. 3 of those games were just nail biters, but nobody remembers anything but the win or loss. And this one, they've actually had more blowouts in this one, 2 of them against them and 1 for them. And they had that one close game, which I thought they could have or should have won.
Yeah.
But the fact is, they have been playing competitively pretty much most of the season.
Sure, and even if they lose tonight, you hope they make a good showing and have a chance. And boy, if they could somehow upset them and then have another home game in New Orleans on Thursday, that would be awesome.
That would be amazing. I think the roof would go off the place if that could happen. And I'm not saying it's impossible to win tonight. If you're watching a replay later in the week, you already know what happened. But the fact is that game's in 2 hours, and let's have some luck here. Hey, moving forward, LSU baseball. I haven't talked a lot about LSU baseball since the middle of the season. They've been kind of floundering around. I believe they're 12-12 in conference now. On Friday night, they were 10-12. And they got the 2 wins against 4th-ranked Arkansas. Congratulations to Paul Maneri. And they've never been this struggling this late, but they have struggled in years past, and they put it together and put streaks together. But their time is starting to run out. What do you think about their chances the rest of the way in the SEC and then possibly not making the NCAA tournament? Because right now, some people are projecting 0 Louisiana teams, and some years they get 5 or 6.
Yeah, LSU hasn't been in this situation this late in the season since 2011, that's the last time they weren't ranked, and their RPI is in the 50s right now, or at least it was going into
right under 50. Yeah,
right. But you know they beat a number 4 team in the series. They should sweep Alabama this weekend, which is the worst team. So they're going to be around 15 or 16 wins. They finish at Auburn, which is a decent team. So they're going to be close. I think they'll get in.
Right.
They're not going to be a top seed, obviously, for the first time.
Might have to go on the road.
Years. Yeah. And you know what? You know, everybody else has to go on the road. No,
we're not used to that here in Louisiana.
Yeah, I know.
We're not used to it.
But Maneri's good at closing out seasons. He's really good over the last 3 SEC series going back. He's usually winning 8 or 9 of those games. So.
What's your favorite sport to cover with LSU? Let me just start with LSU. What's your favorite out of the 3 sports with them?
Wow. I would say baseball has been because they've been the most successful consistently going back to the 90s, and the coaches are much more media friendly. It's just by nature baseball's kind of a talking sport, and there's not all the BS you got to go through with the other sports.
No, I get it. No, I know what you're talking about, dude.
And it's just a more free flow information sport, and but you know, football's great too. I'm kind of spoiled though. I mean, I covered Skip Bertman and Nick Saban. It's probably 2 of the greatest coaches in their sports, arguably in the history of the game.
No question.
So when you cover that, you know, you get a little spoiled.
I mean, you could argue that they are the greatest. I mean, honestly,
sure.
You know, maybe baseball might have a little more argument, but
and then our boy
Nick Saban, I'm wearing a Bama jacket apparently today. I pulled this out of the cobwebs. I haven't worn this one in about 6, 8 months.
And Coach Brady's the last coach at LSU that you could go cover practice. You know, he was great to cover.
Dude, I was an agent and Coach let me come in. He trusted me. But no, that's the crazy part.
He was great to cover. I loved covering JB.
Well, he's one of my favorites of all time. Love them. Hey, by the way, you talked about football. I have to bring it up. Projections right now aren't good for LSU. They're talking about 7.5 games is the over and under on wins. Obviously, there's a lot of new players, and I think that has a big part of that, and you're replacing a lot of guys that went to the NFL. But what do you think after seeing what happened in the spring? I think you probably covered the spring game. I imagine if you didn't, you know about it. What are your thoughts about this next coming season?
Well, the talent is just not there as it has been in the past. The roster management has been kind of slipping. They're better on the defensive line. They're okay on the offensive line. But tailback, quarterback, cornerback doesn't have the talent they used to have. And they got a tougher schedule this year with Georgia and Miami. So 7-5 is going to be the most popular pick you see, and that's probably where they're going to end up.
Wow. And they got that home game against Georgia, home at Alabama. There's no chance they can sneak an upset in one of those? No chance at all? Tiger Stadium mystique, nothing?
I would say they have a chance of upsetting Georgia. Dave Aranda is an excellent coach. They're probably going to be still pretty good on defense. So they'll have a chance. You know, the key is how they do against Miami in the opener.
That's the key. That could be the one that turns the ignition. We'll see. The momentum is a crazy thing, particularly in a sport like football. When you get it going, you never know. Glenn Guilbeau, I cannot thank you enough. You're one of my favorite guys. You're certainly the guy when I see in the media, I always get a smile. I always get a smile on my face when I see you. I love seeing you. Hey, enjoy this.
All right.
It's a gift certificate to Shays de la Shays. Go enjoy that. I know you like nice food, nice restaurants, and nice wine, and they have some of the best in town.
Okay.
And thank you, brother.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Glenn Guilbeau, check him out, USA Today Network. Hey, this was a show sometimes we have like the coaches and the players and stars. This is more of an informational show, and I love these kind of shows. We're going to have fun. I do have a coach coming up next, though, and that is the head coach of the New Orleans Jesters. That's right. The season begins tomorrow night. His name is Farrell. He's from Dublin, Ireland, and he's been here for 30 years. New Orleans for 20. He's been in the States, I should say. So he's coming up next. And don't forget, at the end, I'm going to have a lot of fun. I have two guys that are local handicappers, and they have real jobs, too. They just like to have fun with the horses. And they went up to Kentucky, and they did some amazing things. We'll have that at the end of the show. They're the McGoey brothers. But stay tuned for all that coming up on Primetime Sports.
The owners of the de la Shays Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez de la Shay, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez de la Shay, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll at Mid-City Lanes, the home of rock and roll.
Cayman is an all-natural alligator oil that treats anything concerning your skin from head to toe. Cayman oil is antibacterial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, and helps with ailments, including burns, severe acne, athlete's foot and toe fungus. Cayman oil also helps with everyday issues such as healing cuts and scrapes, as well as spider and mosquito bites. It also does wonders quickly clearing up scars, dry scalp, psoriasis, and eczema. And it's made right here in Louisiana. More information is available online at CaymanOil.com or Amazon.com. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. I got to thank my man Glenn Guilbeau for all that great Pelicans talk, and we threw a little LSU in there as well. And don't forget, coming up next, I have a couple local guys, the McGoey brothers, who just got back from Louisville, Kentucky, where they were at the Kentucky Derby up there at Churchill Downs, and they won $300,000 this weekend, and that's nothing new for them. And it wasn't betting on the race itself. It was a contest where you bet a bunch of races and you get a little bankroll. But we'll get into that next. But right now, once a year I do this, sometimes twice. We talk soccer, and I admittedly say that's the sport I probably know the least about. So every time I have my next guest on, he teaches me a little something. He's been in New Orleans for about 20 years, originally from Dublin, Ireland. He is the head coach of the New Orleans Jesters. His name is Kenny Farrell, and I love having him on because I love listening to his accent.
Hi,
What's up, my man? How you doing, brother?
Good. How are you?
Look how sharp you look today.
Got to wear the purple. We're playing tomorrow night.
Your wife has stepped you up, my friend. Look at this, looking good.
Well, I'd hear it if I wasn't.
By the way, I have to give you some props because I don't think you've been on since I was at the last playoff game that y'all won. I remember watching the news, and I was kind of sitting behind the goal, and I remember jumping up, cheering like I've been rooting for you for 50 years like the Saints. So
I remember it.
Talk about the exhilaration of that playoff win.
Yeah, it was great. It was against an arch rival, Atlanta, and they came into town all buzzing, ready to beat us, and you know, it was a very tight game, as you know.
Yeah.
And it could have gone either way.
Right.
But it was a 1-0 game. We broke the deadlock, and it was a super goal, and it was a super goal. It was you were right behind it, so you saw it. Very athletic finish from Tony Giudice, great cross from the wing, and we survived. You know, the last 5 or 6 minutes, which was in front of you as well.
It was right in front of me, man. It was action packed.
Yeah,
keeping them away. But by the way, anytime a New Orleans team can beat an Atlanta team, I think you got the whole city behind you.
Yeah. I mean, it's vice versa as well. When we go up there, they do not want us to walk away with a victory. I can tell you that. Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. You just mentioned Tony Giudice. It seems like he's been playing with you since the Clinton administration. How long has he been around?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy they call him Mr. Jester, right?
Yeah, Tony was a youth player with me years ago, you know, and he's now 32 years old, and he's been, I think, about a decade with the Jesters now. And even in training today and yesterday, he is still someone that puts in more effort than anyone I know. He just sets the tone in training. He can still score goals at this level.
Yeah.
And he's just a great. They call him Mr. Jester. That's his nickname.
I know, Mr. Jester. I love it. He obviously can score goals. He scored perhaps the biggest goal maybe in Jester history. That was a big one against Atlanta last year.
Yeah.
Would you argue maybe, possibly?
Yeah. It was, and it wasn't easy to score. I think he was almost upside down in the air, everything off the ground. He still got his head to a ball and turned it into the net. It was incredible. One-touch finish, yeah.
By the way, the season starts. I don't know if it's official the season tomorrow. I know you have a huge game tomorrow. Explain what that is, and then talk about the first regular season game.
Well, tomorrow's the U.S. Open Cup. It's a competition that's run by United States Soccer Federation and allows different levels of teams to come into the competition. Major League Soccer will eventually be in this competition. We're in the first round. We were selected because we had such a good ranking last year and such a good season. So if you get past the third round, there's a possibility you could end up against a Major League Soccer team. In fact, if we win on tomorrow night, we're already drawn at home next Wednesday against Indy 11, which is a Level 2 Division 2 team right under MLS.
Right.
So that'll be another huge night. If we win tomorrow, you know, if we
so they're home next week if they win tomorrow?
It's already
and where's
pre-drawn.
Tomorrow's game?
Pan American Stadium.
Oh, that's Pan American Stadium too. Hey, by the way, how does this affect your regular season? Isn't that starting now too?
Yeah, it plays alongside with it.
Okay.
And so we kick off the home season, the regular home season on Saturday night at Pan American against Knoxville, and you know.
What time is that? I want people to come to that.
That's a 7 o'clock kickoff.
All right, I have a wedding to go to this week, but
not good enough.
But future matches, I'm going to be coming. I love it now.
Yeah.
You know, I started kind of getting the World Cup a few times. You know, about 3 World Cups ago, but I never watch it in between. And because of what I saw last year, I'm like, this is exciting. It's fun.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. The stadium's exciting too. I mean, it's an old stadium down there, and but the crowd get very close to the players. And then they see the physicality, the skill, the agility, and it's just a very exciting place to be, to bring your kids and watch the game, especially if they're playing the game at the youth level to come down. These are very high-level players. These are just short of being Major League Soccer players.
I'm going to say this. If you haven't been to a game, it was unbelievable. Now, granted, I went to a playoff game, so it was packed in there.
Yeah.
It was a packed house at Pan Am Stadium, but
we like to see it that way.
it's fun going to games. It really is. Y'all do it up right.
Yeah. No, Pan American has a nice atmosphere about it.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of families go there, and they feel okay with the kids running around, safe environment. And, you know, as you know, they all run on the pitch at halftime and after the game, which is one of the most exciting things to them. But they also get to see these players and emulate these players. And, you know, for some of the kids that come up to us, they think we're Manchester United, you know.
Sure,
and
right,
it's just,
exactly.
In their eyes, that's what they think, and they love it. And it's absolutely tremendous to be around it. You know?
Well, you've had a couple of guys named Mason that have been around for a good bit. Kind of talk about these two and what they mean to your team. Obviously, Mason Walsh is one of them.
Well, Mason Walsh, he's I think going into his 5th season. his father actually was an international soccer player for England.
I remember that. Yeah.
And he played for Liverpool, who are now in the Champions League final. He played for Manchester City, so there's good genes there. But he loves the city. He comes back every year and he plays for us. He goes home and plays in England, and then he comes back and plays here in the summer for us, and he absolutely loves New Orleans and playing for us, and made a big difference. He makes a big difference on the field. He's got a special talent where he can take people on. He can cut and turn, create space out of nothing. Certainly in the final third of the field where it's in tight areas and there's more players there. He's very good for us in that respect. We're very lucky to have him. And then the other Mason is Mason Maurice.
Maurice, yeah.
And Mason started playing for us when he was about 16 years old, and I think he's on 5 or 6 years now. And but he's from Mandeville, a local kid. And again, completely committed, and hopefully here for a long time. Or I would love to see him get the opportunity to move to a higher level from us, to bounce on. And probably this season is the season that has to happen. He's hitting 22 now, I think, so it's about time that he moved on to the next level.
So what is the next level from where we are here in this league?
Well, you've got two. You've got Major League Soccer.
Yeah.
And you've got Division II Soccer, which is underneath Major League Soccer. And they're stepping stones beyond us. So Division II teams, they don't make a great amount of money, but it still is a nice lifestyle, and you're still in the picture frame where if you're doing well at that level, you'll be plucked into the major leagues.
Yeah, right on.
And then Major League Soccer obviously is the league that where all the money is right now, and it's the top league in the country, and it's doing really, really well. Pulling great crowds in. I think it started in 1995, so it's about 23 years old, and it seems to be booming. Certainly on the business level, it's booming.
Yeah, it is, and I want to ask you that because you came to the States from Ireland about 28 years ago, even though you look super young.
Thank you.
You've been in New Orleans for about 2 decades. Yeah. I mean, what is Major League Soccer in your eyes? I mean, it's obviously bigger in mine because I haven't been following soccer as long, and all of a sudden it seems like it's everywhere. But in your eyes, as a guy that's been around it, how has it grown to you?
Well, it's grown to the point where it's supporting itself. It's a league that's making money now, and if you were to get into it, you wouldn't be getting in at a loss. They're doing pretty well right now, so it's only going to continue to grow. I just don't know how far it can expand. I think the real question is where Major League Soccer doesn't match the rest of the world is we're a country that doesn't have promotion and relegation, and that's the next big thing. Major League Soccer is a franchise system. Somebody pays $150 million, whatever it is, to protect the territory, and then they build the business within the territory, and it's protected. Well, in every other country in the world, that doesn't happen that way. If you end up bottom of the league, you get relegated down to League Two, and the team in League Two gets promoted.
And so, tell people what that means, because I didn't know what it meant until I became an agent, and I represented basketball players around the world, and if you don't finish a certain level, you get dropped to the minor leagues, basically, the next level. And that's kind of a unique thing, but it makes sense, I guess. It doesn't make sense to us because we grew up with this.
But if I was, so it's like LA Galaxy last year had a terrible season. And in any other country in the world, they would have, which is one of our biggest names in Major League Soccer, LA Galaxy, terrible season, they would have been relegated. But the season's over and they start again.
Right.
And they just start again. There's no consequence to be bottom of the league or have a terrible season. And now they're back in it and they've signed a huge player and they're still there. Whereas anywhere else in the world, they would have to fight their way back out of a lower league to get back up. So it happens everywhere else in the world. I think it's one of the reasons that we're not producing world-class players, because I think with that pressure, and we have to compete with the rest of the world who are doing that, you've got to keep striving forward, because the last thing you want is to be relegated out of the league. But with Major League Soccer, they've already paid for the territory, so it's never going to happen with Major League.
Now, if you ever run into Kenny, I mean, he's one of the nicest guys I know. By the way, I'm sorry I don't have the soccer ball here.
We can have that one.
Yeah, I know. I always try to do that. If the golfers here, I'll put that. But the bottom line is, you're always at Ye Olde College Inn. I love it because it's a great restaurant and it's good people. Yeah. So if you run into Kenny, go say hi to him. But the other thing I want to ask you, you talk about the MLS. Last year, we talked about 2 of your former players that were doing so well. Yeah. And I want to get an update on them. Andrew Tarbell, I believe, is from Mandeville. Yeah. I think he's from across the lake. And he's playing with the San Jose Earthquakes. How's he doing?
No, he's doing fantastic. He's solidified the spot as a goalkeeper in the team. When he was drafted in the first round, and having played 5 to 6 years with us, When he went in, he was behind a U.S. national team ranked goalkeeper, and now he's pushed his way in. So he's doing fantastic for them, and he's got a great career ahead of him. Patrick Mullins,
yeah, how's he doing?
Yeah, he's doing great. He's with DC United. He's a striker for them, a key player in their squad. When he got drafted again first round, he bounced around a few teams and ended up with DC United, where he went to college at Maryland.
Yeah.
So it was home for him. Sure. And he's been a great player. He did get an injury last year that slowed him down a little bit, but he's back on top of his game. Kid from Metairie. And I'm glad you brought his name up, because more people need to know about him, and more people need to talk about these players, because a lot of people don't know that we have this great talent that has gone on from local communities into the Major League game.
Two great players.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, World Cup is coming up, and it took a little steam out of the American fan public, because they were starting to get into it. And obviously, the World Cup, the U.S. has been in it a lot recently. Yeah. And I didn't really hear about World Cup action for U.S. until '94. I just remember that being the year that I just remember all of a sudden people were talking about a lot. But without the U.S. in it, let's talk about a couple of the favorites. Yeah. And even I, not knowing soccer much, know that Germany and Brazil are two of the greatest in the world, if not the two best.
Yeah, well, from the European, the winner of this tournament will either come from South America or Europe.
Okay.
Right. So probably the best team in South America is Brazil, and the best team in Europe is Germany. So you would say that they are probably favorites to come out. And then there's a couple of dark horses out there. I actually think England's a dark horse. If they get it right, they got a chance of probably getting to the semi-final, the final, and winning it. I really, truly believe that. And then the other team that I think has a chance is Belgium.
Well, let's talk about their player, Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah,
he is a stud. He's
genius.
A Belgian, and I know we have some shots of him. He's one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, no, he's a genius. He's been playing for Manchester City, that won the Premier League, and I think he was the best player in the English league this year.
Wow,
which
really?
is the top league in the world.
Seriously.
And I think he can make a difference in any team. And I think Belgium, by the way, is a team that is not a team that has won the World Cup before, and I think they're the only ones that have a chance of winning it that actually haven't been the champions before.
Hey, get on out there, please. Get on out over to Pan Am Stadium. They're going to play, did you say tomorrow?
Yeah, Mississippi Bread tomorrow night, and then we play Knoxville on Saturday.
Yeah, and the time tomorrow is the same?
7 p.m. It's always
7 both times. 7 both times. Go down out and try to go. In fact, I might try tomorrow. That might be working for me.
We'd love to see it tomorrow.
By the way, I see you out at restaurants, and your beautiful wife, you have a young child, and you take them out. Go check out Chez de la Chez.
I'm looking forward to it.
Maple Street.
Thank you very much.
Uptown between Carrollton and Broadway.
All right, great.
Kenny Farrell, good luck this season. You brought a lot of pride to the soccer fans here, and I know they're going to have some more coming up this year. All right. Hey, coming up next, we got one more guest. Make it two, and they're brothers. They're the McGoey brothers. Hey, I know the oldest, Tommy, and I know one of the middle ones, Paul, but these are the youngest and the other middle one, Frank and Pat McGoey. They're coming up next, and they're going to talk about their experience in Louisville, Kentucky this past weekend at the Kentucky Derby. That's right here on Prime Time Sports. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. Well, I saved the most fun for last because this is one of these stories that you always dream about. Let me say this. The two guests I have coming up, I've known them for a very long time. Their brother has been one of my best friends for 40 years. And I've known them both. They're both great guys. One's named Frank McGoey. The other is Patrick McGoey. One's a lawyer. One's in the food business. And they also love to handicap on the side. And they're very, very good at it. In fact, probably the best in the country. And I'm going to say this. Frank's been in the horses pretty much his whole life, or at least as long as I've known. And Patrick got into a little bit later in life, but his passion is certainly no less. They went to Kentucky this weekend and got into the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge. And you have to put $12,000 up front. You have an $8,000 bankroll. And then whoever has the most at the end Well, they get to keep the money they win, and you get an under $100,000 if you win, and I guess the prizes get less as you go along. But here they are right here, and they're going to tell their story. First of all, Patrick McGoey, good to see you, buddy. And his older brother, Frank, good to see you. I remember, Frank, when I first saw you, Little League Baseball, you were pitching by the big lefty, and I remember I was small and you were big, and I was like, this dude, yeah. I said, that was your fear, because you threw so fast. I was like, don't hit me, please. But anyway, let's first start with you, Frank, because you've been in the horses a lot.
I'm the one that ruined him.
You ruined him. You corrupted him.
I definitely ruined him.
You corrupted him for about $1 million.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, these guys have won a lot. You won $300,000 together, I'm assuming, this race, this time. And I know you've won this other thing, the BCBC, which is the Breeders' Cup betting challenge. You won that yourself twice over a few hundred people. So let's start with how you first got into horses in general, Frank.
So I remember, and Patrick's 7 years younger than me, so he might not remember. Our dad taking us to the fairgrounds to see a local handicap horse called Letter to Harry.
Wow, okay.
And I remember
your dad.
I think I was probably around 10,
yeah.
and I just remember loving everything about the track. I remember the smell, all the colors, I mean, everything, all the excitement. I loved
the
it.
pageantry, everything.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. I agree.
So then flash forward maybe 3 or 4 years later, a mutual friend of ours, Sam Kogas,
yeah.
He and I were good friends in high school. His uncle was a track superintendent at the fairgrounds, Roy Favret. And so we used to go out on the weekends and hang out in Roy's office. And in between races, the trainers would come in before they went in the paddock to saddle their horses, and they would give them tips. And Roy had it set up where Sam and I could go run bets. There was one teller that would take our bets. We have 14, 15.
Yeah, right.
And if he really liked the horse, he'd give us $110. 100 for him, and 10 was for us.
All right.
And it didn't take long to get hooked.
And you're hooked.
No.
And so how did you get involved? Because he's been doing it for like 40 plus years. What about yourself?
You know, we decided right before Katrina, we wanted to buy a horse. Just kind of get into it with some friends so we could go to...
With no horse experience?
No horse experience.
All right.
We go to the
Life's good at the McGoey household. All right.
Go to the fairgrounds on Friday with buddies.
Right.
So a bunch of us, 10 of us, put some money together, asked Frank to find us a horse. Frank found us a horse. We bought it in May of 2005. Well, then Katrina came along in August. Fairgrounds was closed for a year, and our horse ended up in Shreveport. But we would drive to Shreveport.
It didn't get washed away to Shreveport, right? It went on wheels, correct?
It went on wheels.
All right, good.
But we then proceeded to spend the next few years following that horse and some others we bought. Just had a great time.
That horse was Scott's doll. How you like that? Just like you. She was good. I mean, we claimed her for $25,000, and I think she wound up winning
about
$100,000.
Let's go on this real quick because this is fascinating to me. I talked to your brother Paul, and I'm like, "How'd you do in the Derby?" He goes, "Well, Frank and Patrick won $300,000 in the betting challenge," and all of a sudden they got my attention. I'm like, "What's a betting challenge? Tell me about it." Start there because we don't have a ton of time.
Gotcha.
Tell me what a betting challenge is. Explain to people how it works, and then explain, both of you, how you finished first and third out of all these people, and you took home most of the money.
Simplest terms, everybody puts up the same amount to start, which was for this $12,000. They take $4,000 out that goes towards the prize pool, which we won, and you have $8,000 to bet over the course of 2 days. You have to bet the first day a minimum of 4 races or $3,000 on the first day.
Right.
And on the second day, you have to bet a minimum of 4 races and $5,000. Now, you can go all in at any time if you have a strong opinion.
Yeah.
But if you don't have any money left, you're out.
You're out.
Right. So
there's tons of strategy in this.
There is tons of strategy. Yeah. So Patrick's formula that's worked for him in the past is to just wait and make one big bet on the horse he likes at the end.
Have enough capital to make it worthwhile.
Correct.
Now, let's go there because you've done this before. That's a check for $270,000. That made their 2011 right, as you see on the top. 2011, 2012. You did it at the Breeders' Cup, which is different than the Derby. The Derby's only been doing this for 3 years. But let's talk about how your strategy was on Friday and then Saturday, because I'm fascinated by it and what you had to do and what had to happen in the Derby for you to win.
So I stumbled upon this strategy the first time I did it in the Breeders' Cup. But basically, I bet the minimum amount the first day. Typically, I haven't had success in the first day, and I usually lose money. The second day, I usually take a shot in 1 or 2 races before the final race and hopefully have a bankroll.
And so people know there are about 11 races before the Derby, right? Or somewhere in there?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. So you have all day to do what you want to do, and then you take the big shot at the end.
Yeah, and the key is that half the people in the contest, when it's down to the last race, tighten up.
Right.
And they don't want to bet all the money because they want to go home with something.
Yeah, because it's their money.
Right. But it's their money. But the odds that you get with the players, the prize pool, it's, in my opinion.
Factor that in. So Justify was, for example, Justify was 5-2. He paid $7.
Yeah.
But if you think about what Patrick won, an extra $100,000, well, he was 5-1.
Here's another question: Is it the odds you bet it at, or is it you have to take the odds at post? Because I got Justify, for instance, at 3-1. I'm just curious.
The odds at post.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
final
it
odds.
changes.
Okay.
But, so for this one, I had $25,000 going into the Derby. The leader had $90,000, so I was pretty far off. I bet 50.
Going into the last race.
So
this guy's got to feel really good about himself.
Oh, he was.
Yeah. And I've done this 2 other times as well, where I've come from far back. So it is frustrating.
Beat the same guy 2 years in a row.
Oh, he hates you.
Yes.
All right, move forward. I want to hear how this works.
So I bet $15,000 to win on Justify.
All right, what would that pay?
That would have paid
roughly about
45,000.
Still not enough.
Still not
enough because you got to get some other action to get over that.
I bet $9,000 to place on Justify, which paid got me up to around $80,000, but the leader had $90,000. And I put in a $100 trifecta with Justify in first, 3 or 4 horses in second, and 3 or 4 horses in third place. For a trifecta, you have to hit first, second, and third.
Right.
And I hit that, and it paid $10,000.
So there's 20 horses here. This is the thing that people don't seem to understand. It's not like going to the fairgrounds, you have an 8-horse race. There's 20 horses. And you might say 3 or 4 of them are toss-outs. But then again, some long shots do win this race, and they've won them before. So my point is I know the second and third horse, Audible finished third. Good Magic finished second. What made you think about these 3 horses that you picked?
Audible, I had bet in a Derby Futures pool, so I'd liked him for a long time. And
Clutcher horse?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah. And Good Magic, and he hated Audible, by the way.
I did.
Good Magic was trained by Chad Brown.
That's why he finished third.
And Chad Brown is just an up-and-coming trainer.
He's great.
And I said to myself before the Derby, Chad Brown's not going to beat me in a dirt race. So I used all his horses.
Yeah, the unique thing about the Derby, Scott, is that it's the one race a year where you have so much information on all the contestants. It really shouldn't be that tough to pick. I mean, you have seen every race, every horse has run up to this point. You've seen all the prep races.
Yeah.
Every workout is now on TV before these races. And I actually go up to the track, go up to Kentucky, to Churchill on Tuesday of Derby week, so I can see them live in the flesh.
That's what I want to ask you. Do they just do you have some special pass? Tell people what that is, and tell me what you did to watch this horse, as they say, schooling. You got to see him the day before or the week before.
Gotcha. So to see the Derby horses, I get one of my trainer friends to sign me in on the backside, and you can go on the backside.
All right.
And see.
Back door.
Right. But the horse, I think the horse you're talking about is it's a quick story.
All right, go ahead.
My friends and I claimed a horse at Fairgrounds this past winter called Quiet Concert.
Okay.
We won a race with him. We lost him. He got claimed. He wound up with one of your previous guests, Tom Amos, trains him.
Yes, Tom Amos, right.
So he was in on Thursday, and I told Patrick, I said, let's go see my old buddy. Let's go down to the paddock and see Quiet Concert. We go down there to see him, and there's a horse schooling in the paddock.
Which
for
means
the
walking
Humana
around.
Right, just a trainer from out of town, from California, getting his horse used to the environment so that on Saturday, when she runs, she doesn't lose her composure, basically before the race. And she looked incredible.
And do you know the name of the horse when you're seeing it?
I knew he only had 2 horses in on Saturday.
Ah, okay.
And I had a feeling that it was an American Gal. And when I went and watched her replay...
Was this the Oaks?
No, this wasn't the Oaks. This was the Humana Distaff, the 7 furlong race.
Right.
She looked incredible. Right. And I told Patrick, I said, we got to check this horse out more when we do our handicapping for Saturday. So...
It's American Gal, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I looked up girl. Hey, girl.
So Saturday morning, when I watch a replay, I turned to Patrick, and I showed him. I said, you got to see this. And he watched it, and I said, this is a gift from the racing gods. And Quiet Concert, my old horse. This horse can't lose Saturday.
Wow.
I was thinking about betting all my money at that point on her.
Just throw it in.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I bet a significant chunk and got us in a good position.
All right, back to the Derby real quick, because I want to know what you're thinking during this race, because there's so much on every horse the way they finish? I mean, if they finish the opposite, you don't win, right? They have to finish first, second, and third, or could they all three just be finished whatever?
No, I put the trifecta in with just Justified in first, just Good Magic in second, and just Audible.
See, I would
in
be
third.
the dude that's just like, just give me all three. If they finish whatever, but so that obviously must pay more.
It does.
All right,
it does.
so-
You're able to make a bigger bet. So I made $15,000 on the trifecta bet. But my biggest bet was on Justified to win, and to be honest with you, I was pretty calm throughout the race. I could tell he was going to win. I mean, he broke great. He was in command of the race.
We're running out of time, but was there any doubt because of the weather and the sloppiest track in Churchill history?
Yes, but he had the best jockey in the world on his back, and
Mike Smith.
Mike Smith. Yeah. He knows how to get him out of the gate.
And he's helped you before. Drosselmeyer, when you won in 2000, Drosselmeyer?
Yes.
In 2011? I do my research too. So you've won 3 of these betting challenges, and you've won, I would imagine, close to $1 million, or about
$750.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad. And you're a lawyer too. Not so bad. Hey, it's been a blast. If I wasn't running out of time, that clock tells me I got to get going. So here are a couple gift certificates. Hey, you don't need these.
Thank you.
These guys are coming home with 6 figures plus. I love it. Frank and Patrick McGoey, thank you so much. It's been great. I got to go. The clock's saying 10:08. I got to thank Will Hill, the Redhead Tsunami, Anthony, Naila, and everybody at CST and WLAE. We'll see you, Archie Manning, next week right here. Bye-bye.